Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of If Margaritas Could Talk, the Over 40 Chronicles podcast, where we sip, spill, and speak the truth with salt on the rim and no filter in sight. Nothing is off limits and everything is on the rocks, especially us. I'm your host, Tracee Black, and this episode is a hard one. This is for all the moms and pops out there. We're talking today about parenting when you're not okay, when you're broken, when you're grieving. I lost my 26-year-old daughter to suicide. That loss, it wrecked me. But somehow I'm still here, still parenting, still surviving. And honestly, some days I'm just trying not to burn the toast. So grab your drink, because today we are getting very real. You know those moments that split your life into two? There's the before and the after and nothing in between. The day I lost my daughter was that moment. She was light and love and struggling in silence. And when she left this world, I didn't know if I would ever find my own again. I was still a mom to my son, who was 19 at the time. But I was showing up hollow, present in body, gone in spirit. People asked me how I was doing, and I lied. Because how do you explain a pain that has no words? Every single parent walking this planet, when they choose to bring children into this world, sets the goal to make sure they are raising incredibly beautiful humans by supplying the right tools. And we try to do our very, very best as parents to make sure that we are setting them up for success in the future, to be good people, successful adults, everything. But the one thing that crossed my mind, when your kids are younger, the one thing that parents' worst nightmare could possibly be is losing a child. Now, if you're a mom who has lost a child in other forms, whether that be through miscarriage or through cancer or other forms of loss, it is every parent's nightmare. I'm here to talk about it. I spent 6 years writing a novel, 6 years of trying to put all my words together on paper to see what was going to come from that, right? 6 years of trying to understand how to navigate such a very, very, very relentless pain. And every single time you step out the door, somebody else is standing there in a grocery store with their daughter or their son. And it's a reminder that your child is no longer here. I wasn't sure 1000% that I was ready to do this episode yet, but my life is in the process. Here we are in 2025 of making some really big changes. I survived breast cancer last year, and I swore to myself that I was going to start healing and continue my healing journey. And sometimes healing is actually talking through it. Originally, when I started writing a book about my pain and a book about every single moment that I was going through after she had passed away. That phone call that was received that tore my world upside down. That relentless pain so heavy that it feels like half of your body is missing. The relentless pain that keeps you up where you just weep in your sleep for hours and hours and hours. And I wasn't ready. When you're a parent, you never expect that. The golden rule is that we're supposed to grow old and watch our children grow, and they have their children and our grandkids, and we're supposed to live this incredible life later as a family, doing all the things and celebrating and creating more memories. And then we live to be old, and then our children survive us. But there's no preparation for the loss of a child. So what I want to do in this episode is just talk with really raw and candidly, because there's a lot of mothers and fathers out there who have had this happen. I don't think we can sit back and watch when things happen, and it happens every 15 minutes, suicide. Believe it or not, that's statistically what it is. So we always want all the answers. We want the answers to why. We want the answers to why our child got sick with cancer and didn't survive. We want the answers to why they died perhaps in a car crash. This is a really, really difficult, hard topic to discuss. But I know that there's parents out there and families out there that want to know that they're not alone. Because you're not alone. And I understand 1000% how you feel every waking minute of every day. I was driving home coming from a business meeting, and I got this phone call, and I had noticed I had missed a few phone calls on my phone. And I'll backtrack for a second. My daughter was in college and studying radio and television broadcasting. And she was also married. She'd been married for 2 years. She was 26. So imagine that you're just driving along one day. Life is good. You're preparing for the summer. This is spring of 2018. So you're preparing for the summer. And our last Christmas together, she had come to visit, and it was amazing. You talk with your kids, you teach your kids. I mean, I always had this really open dialogue with both of my children to say, hey, let's talk about things when things are hard. Let's talk about them. And I'm always here. I'll always, always, always be here. I like to think that as a mom, I did the best job I could possibly do. We all make mistakes. Parents, we're learning. We're trying to break the shackles of generational trauma, and you try to show up for your kids and be there for your kids and support your kids in every decision that they make, because that's our job when you become a parent, is to do that. That's our job, is to love them unconditionally and guide them and give them every ounce of every little bit they need to become really good humans. So when you're blindsided by something and an unfortunate event happens, your body, and I will say this with the utmost, and I know that majority of you out there who have experienced this understand what I'm talking about, feels like your chest was ripped open and your heart was taken, and there's a giant hole there. A gut-wrenching pain that never leaves. Some of the symptoms from trauma, which I'm going to get into in a second here, when you suffer loss from parents passing or, friends passing or things like that, it's a different kind of pain. It's there and it hurts. This, however, is hard. It's hard. I never imagined that I would be sitting on a podcast talking about my feelings and the rawness of losing my child, losing my daughter. My first forever love. That baby comes out, you fall in love instantly, and I just can't even believe you're mine and you chose me. So when we're dealing as parents with such a relentless 24-hour, never lets up pain from the instant loss, your goal is to survive. As moms, we're fixers, right? We're supposed to be fixing all the things. We're supposed to fix the boo-boos when they fall down and break a bone, or they skin their knee when they fall off their bike, or they have their first heartbreak. We're there as moms. We're there to say, here, I'm here to listen. I'm here to hug. I'm here to give you the support when you just need your mom in that moment. And in that moment, I didn't know what to do. I got the news and I was driving on the highway. I had to pull over and my body became just limp. And I screamed in terror for a really long period of time. I had to call my family to come and pick me up because I could not drive. I had to face my son, who now didn't understand what just happened. He was 19. And now he's driving me and I'm screaming and he is trying to figure out what has happened. How is this even possible? All the questions and all the things come up, but you just don't know. You just don't know. I remember distinctively, I walked around the house saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Because again, like I circle back to that where we are parents and we're supposed to be fixing all the things all the time. We're the planners and the preppers and we take care of all of the Christmas things and we take care of the birthday parties and be there for the celebration and be there to support. But then all of a sudden that was taken and I had no way of controlling what was happening. And you know, it's not even for moms. It's not even controlling. It's just second nature. You have these responsibilities. You have to look out and raise your kids and make sure they're fed and they're bathed and they get to school and all the things. So you raise them and you do all that work and then they become adults, but that never goes away. You can't turn off the mom switch. And I know every single mother that I hope that's listening to this understands that that's okay. No one's asking you to turn your mom switch off. I became this, I became this full-blown helicopter mom to my son after this had happened. Like the rotor blades were spinning 24/7, making sure that I tracked every move he made, which was not fair to him, but he too was also grieving. And I went even as far as to check whether or not he was breathing when he slept one night. That's how overanalyze I was, where I was scared. I was projecting my anxiety onto every little thing. It wasn't about control though. It was about fear, the kind of fear that clings to your bones. But fear doesn't make for good parenting. It makes for tight fists. And our kids, adults, younger, however, our children, no matter the age, needs open hands, not clenched ones. I had to learn painfully that I can't protect them from everything. But I can be honest. I can show them what healing looks like in real time. My son laid with me for a week straight, crying. And I cried, and we cried. And he tried to be strong. And he said, Mom, I'm here. I'm going to help fix this. And I'm like, but there's nothing to fix, sweetheart. The words that you would thought you would never hear from your 19-year-old son, that's not his responsibility. To fix his broken mom, because her heart's broken and every bit of her is shattered. In turn, he is shattered. So we're trying to do this shattering family thing, and all the people around us are trying to be supportive, but it's hard because how do you support something so horrific because you don't understand the amount of pain? There was times, so many dark times where it's almost like my brain shut off. It just shut off completely. I couldn't retain a single amount of information. I was trying to plan a celebration of life. I didn't know what was happening from one minute to the next. I was sort of just wandering around like a zombie, just crying. I hadn't brushed my teeth or my hair in probably a week and a half. Hadn't got out of bed. Hadn't eaten a single ounce of food, just drank water. It was scary, crazy. I didn't know what I needed to do. All I knew is that in that moment, that's what was happening. That's how my body just dealt with it. When you're trying to show up and be the best version of yourself to your kids, and all of a sudden you're at your very weakest point and your children have never seen you like that, it's hard because you have to also help them through their pain. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I had days where I didn't want to live myself, days where the grief sat so heavy on my chest like a boulder and would not move. I questioned everything. I questioned my beliefs. I questioned my purpose, my ability to keep going. I'd cry on the kitchen floor. I'd wipe my face and go help with something. And then everything was fine for a few minutes until it wasn't again. But even in the dark, I kept breathing. And every breath was a protest, a whisper that said, not today. And if you're in that place right now, I want you to know that I see you. And I swear to you, the light does come back slowly, one flicker at a time. When you are processing your feelings after a loss of your child, people try to console you. And, flowers are showing up and plants are showing up and cards are showing up and people are calling. And there's this overwhelming amount of people want to help. That's their instant, like, I need to get in touch. I need to call. I need to try to help because they don't know what to do. And it's uncomfortable. And because it's uncomfortable for people, the first words when someone passes is, I'm sorry. But because it's a part of empathy, it's a part of, I understand. But even though you don't understand losing a child, hopefully you never understand what it is to feel like to lose your child. I sat just watching the phone ring one after the other, after the other, after the other. And all I could do was just close my eyes and let the tears flow down. Hey there, got a brand with personality? Then let's talk. On If Margaritas Could Talk, we sip, chat, and connect with a community that loves good stories, good laughs, and living life out loud. Your business could be a part of that vibe. From bold brands to fresh startups, we've got ad spots ready to go. So grab a lime and let's mix something great. Hit us up at podcast.imct@gmail.com or visit us at ifmargaritascouldtalk.com. Cheers. You're trying to prepare, right? You're trying to prepare for, now I have to deal with this next part of stuff. I have to go prepare for the celebration of life or the funeral or whatever it is that you've chosen to do to honor that person. In this case, I chose to honor my daughter at her favorite place, which was the zoo when she was a kid. And even she was always an animal lover. And, it just came to me. I said her very favorite place in the world has been the zoo. She's always had animals be a part of her life and lots of responsibility, and used to volunteer at the SPCA and do a bunch of different things. And it felt like the right place. And I knew I had to honor her because for whatever reason, her loneliness was so strong that it pushed her to make such a very, very big decision. No one can ever understand when someone makes a choice of this nature. And, one of the things I ask, if anyone's listening to this out there who can understand and relate, whether it's your child or your sister or your brother or your cousin or your grandchild or your best friend or your brother, whomever, make sure that when you're speaking of them, that the words are to honor them. I started writing, not for Instagram, not for anyone, but just for me. It was raw and messy and angry. But it helped. It helped me get out where I couldn't speak. I couldn't say things out loud. I remember I was looking for a box for her urn. I wanted something specific. I was like, I'm not interested in these traditional urn things. That was not her. She was very vibrant, and I wanted something to represent that. So my family had taken me to go to find something creative that I could construct that would, help me in that moment in terms of representing her. And they took me to Michael's, and all I remember was I walked in the door, and in that process of looking for something specific, I had a full meltdown anxiety attack and had to sit down. I was going to pass out. And then the tears just kept going and kept going and kept going. When you can't say it out loud, your body then shows what you're feeling. And that's okay. What I couldn't say out loud, eventually the writing became something else. It was a path. It was a mirror. It was a lifeline. And so in those moments when I was at my very, very weakest point, I would write. It may have been a word. It may have been a sentence, just something. It just would pop into my head. I couldn't read, which was really, really weird. So as a designer, I took, a leave of absence, and I was, had to tell my clients, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm unavailable. We've had a tragedy in our family, and I have to navigate this. But the weirdest thing was the body responses to the inability to form sentences, the inability to read a full sentence, your trauma response in your body, which is naturally there to protect you, was there to stop me from having a lot more darker moments. And these darker moments would come. I had to work through them. I would take a walk. I would go sit down at the beach. Sometimes I would sit on the beach on this large rock down when the tide was out and sit there for 4 or 5 hours and just cry, because you need a release. You need to allow your body to naturally process what's just happened. So here I am. It's been 7 years. And through the 7 years, there are moments. The first couple of years, just the anniversary comes around every year and it's hard. Christmas comes around every year and it's hard. You're reminded that the grief stands for the amount of love that you're missing out on, because it was the amount of love that you had for that individual. So when I write to connect. I write to tell the truth. I write to remind others that they're not alone in their mess. Because when you lose a child, the world keeps moving. That is the hard truth fact. But you don't. Writing at that time helped me catch up. I was determined that I was going to be writing a book that would eventually come out 6 years later. That was my journey on what it's like to lose a child. And the book was supposed to be a tool that would help other parents or other individuals to understand that everything they're feeling and everything that they're going through is perfectly normal, and it's okay. Because you can have all the mental health books and mental wellness books out in the world that say, hey, it's okay to not be okay. That is true. But this is different. When you were talking about things that you deal with daily, whether you have anxiety or you have panic attacks or any of these sorts of things, they are not generic. They are important. This is a little bit different, because I never in my life previous, always a successful career woman, never had panic attacks or anxiety. I had confidence. And every single time I stepped outside the door, I would have a panic attack. every single time my son stepped out the door to drive to work, I would have a panic attack. Every single time I didn't hear him come through the door after work, I would have a panic attack. This went on and on for years. I'm going to be totally honest with you right now. They're still happening. I now have anxiety and panic attacks that come on a very consistent basis. For other reasons, because trauma is a part of our genetics. When trauma is there, it's there. It's real, it's raw. Post-COVID, all the things. We've gone through so much in society and things are so different. And you know what's really interesting, which I don't know if anybody can relate to this or not, but I worked so hard to try to stop generational trauma because in my family background, there's a lot of generational trauma. So myself went through a lot as a child and did not have the best upbringing. When I raised my kids, I was like, I'm going to be the best mom there is. I'm going to do all the great mom things. I am going to protect my kids from everything. But all of a sudden, they grow up and you can't protect them from all the things. I'm not the same woman I was before my daughter died, and I never will be. I've found a new version of me, maybe a little softer, maybe a way more strong, but still anxious as hell, but aware. I've learned how to hold space for my joy and sorrow at the same time. I'm still overprotective as craziness. I'm still also learning to let go a little. My parenting now is not perfect. My son is just turned 27. And sometimes it's not even pretty, but it's real and it's honest and it's rooted in love, not fear. And you know what? That's enough. For every single parent that's out there, everything gets softer. It never goes away. It will never, ever, ever go away. But it does get softer. Support looks different for different people. Support is required when you lose your child. I am grateful and I will be always eternally grateful for every single person who stepped up to support me and still does. Do your best. Hold yourself accountable in the moments, and you got to go through it to get to the other side of it. I will tell you this. At the end of last year, I'd set a goal that I was going to finish the book and put the book out to the world. And then I started editing the book and realized that there's some very, very dark, deep things in this book that maybe I'm not ready to put out to the world. So part of me feels like I wrote the book specifically to heal parts of me, but I also found that rereading and going over while I'm editing allowed me to understand how I was in that moment, and I'm in a different place in time now. When we lose control over the things that we've always had control over which again is our children, when we raise them, when they're little, when they're babies, they can't walk. We have to teach them how to walk. We have to teach them everything. And then they become adults and they make decisions for themselves. I will forever, for the rest of my life, always just never have an answer. I have somewhat of some clues because a lot of people came forward to say these specific things were happening. But how do you not know as a parent? I felt like I had failed my child. How come I didn't know that my child was struggling? You know why? Because our kids watched us raise them and know that we want better for them and we want them to do well in life. But also that they're human. And we also put the premise out to our children and the clear understanding that you are human and you are going to have hard moments. But this was a hard moment that she couldn't get out from. I did all the things. I started a foundation in her name to help anybody who was part of a family, to anyone that they've lost to suicide. I started the foundation to help with mentorship for those that are struggling with ideology of suicide. I did all the things that I needed to do, but somehow it didn't fix it all. And and it's not that I was wanting it to fix it all, but I knew I needed to give her a voice. But then part of me was like, maybe I don't need to give her a voice. So, you're battling all this stuff as a parent, and you want to do right by your children. The one thing I can honestly say, which I hope that the general people out there who are perhaps maybe picking this up and listening to it, or know someone who is going through this right now, a little bit of advice. You can be there for them, but you'll never understand it. Reminding someone that they're strong is not the right answer. I didn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that I'm strong because this is not fair. And when you sit back later on and you get to watch your friends with their daughters and their sons, it's a reminder that yours is no longer there anymore. And again, like I stated, their lives go on, but yours does not. We have to find understanding within ourselves to say, here we are. And those people are certainly lucky to still have their child around them, and perhaps their grandchildren and so on. All of it is difficult. All of it is hard. I would ask that anybody take the time to just hold someone, give them a hug. You don't have to say anything. I had found that I had family who kept trying to say specific things to me, which would trigger other things, and anger would come out, because you do go through a series of emotions from sad to angry to, you name it. Helplessness, it's all there. And somebody in my family once said to me, hey, don't forget you have a son that you have to live for. I'm like, pardon me? So you're trying to tell me that I'm not allowed to grieve? That's not okay. I'm going to grieve the way that I am in this moment that my body is grieving. I have no control over how to grieve. You just don't. The idea that someone would have the audacity to tell anybody that is beyond mind-blowing to me. You cannot tell someone how to grieve. So when you hear someone has lost somebody, the words that you need to say are, I'm here for you in any capacity. I would love to make breakfast or dinner or drop it off for you. Do you need, because here's the thing. Somebody who's going through this type of loss is not going to ask anything from a single person because they don't know what they're going through. So don't ask them what they need, but just take action. Stop by with the casserole. Stop by with bottles of water. Whatever you need to do, it's an action, not the words, because the words sit blank in someone who's just lost their child. I hope that perhaps this podcast today, even though it's dark but it's real, maybe you're going through this and maybe you just need to know that on the other side of it, there will come a time where it will be a bit lighter. I chose not to put the book out to the world. Instead, I took parts and bits and pieces and I chose to write a different book. And that book is called New Year, New Me, The Let Me Method. And what it does is it's focused on two parts, right? It's focused on the new year, which is me growing and finding tools to keep going and keep growing and still love myself and still love my daughter and still be able to celebrate those moments and still love my family and my son, but love me enough to recognize that it's okay to think forward motion about yourself and how to navigate, because it's always going to be a part of you. It never goes away. So think about that for one moment. I wrote the book so that I could heal. I wrote the book to also help others heal and think about positivity and think about moving forward in their life after some time has passed. But right now, in this moment, just know that there will be a time when everything will feel a little bit lighter. I've said it over and over again because it's true. This is Margaritas Could Talk. And of course, if you had a few margaritas, maybe it's easier to talk about this stuff. But if a margarita could talk, they'd probably say, babe, you're doing the best that you can. So sip, breathe, and keep showing up. My message is to every mom parenting through pain. I raise my glass to you because you're not alone. You're not broken beyond repair. You're becoming. And if no one has told you today, I'm so proud of you, even on your messiest days. I want to thank you for tuning into If Margaritas Could Talk. If this episode touched you in any way, please share it with a friend who needs a little light. Leave a review, hit that follow button, and catch us on Instagram. For more real talk, and until next time, take your healing one sip at a time. Always remember that if life gives you limes, that you make a margarita. So don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.